Hi, how are you?
Hi Megan, how are you?
Oh, I'm not bad.
How's things? You froze. Can you see me? Megan seems to have froze on it.
Oh, have we both back
Oh,
in
there we are now.
chain?
I can see two of you. There,
Oh
just one.
no.
It's just you now. You got a twin?
Yes. No, I don't. I think my parents would kill me if there was another one of me, to be honest. um no, I don't know what happened there. It just went completely black for a second. Let's just have a look.
Modern day technology for you.
I know, it's just, you know what, my internet has been working fine, and then the minute it comes to doing a live stream, it goes off, which is always my luck. I don't know if you can see yourself because I can't see you.
I can see myself, yeah.
Right, let's have a little look. System issues, as if that's going to be happening.
Now I can just see you. Now I can see the two of us.
Right, okay, let's have a little play. Well, I can't see you, so I think nobody else is going to be able to see you.
Wait there. My cam. That's cam off. Cam on.
Nah.
No, now you're away.
See, I still can't see you. Don't know what's going on.
I can
Why
see you.
is happening
Is there
today?
a way I can see this on Facebook? Is it on Facebook now?
Yeah, it should be.
Wait,
That's a good check. Let's check if people can
is it
see.
on your channel?
Yeah.
Let me see real life
Yeah, I
chat.
think
Yeah,
people
you can
can.
see me.
That's fine. As long as other
Oh
people
no,
can
hold
see
on.
you.
No, I don't think you can. Oh, you can. I think. Hold on. Play.
Yeah, it should
No,
be.
yeah, you can see me. I'm there.
Right, that's oh, I
There.
can see you now. That's fine. I can see you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Right, cool. If anything goes down again, then, that's fine. So somebody's just said I can see him, so that's fine. If it goes off and I can't see you, other people can see you, so that's fine.
That's fine.
So yes, let's start after technical issues. So again, obviously this is my third podcast in the MC Real Life Chat, so I just want to welcome everybody back. We do have Mr. Jay Haston today, from Scotland. So we're going to cover a lot about obviously your campaign and the stigma behind men's mental health and just kind of raise awareness. So Jay, what I'll do is I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself to the people watching.
Sure. So my name's Jay Haston. I am just an average Joe. I'm a survivor of adverse childhood experiences. I didn't really want to go into too much and trigger anybody in the audience. My story is quite widely known. There's more to come out as well. A lot of my life, I lived a bad life up until I was about 30, until I lost my second father, my stepdad, to cancer.
Right.
And I had a major depression, and I started to have an existential crisis and ask who I was and what I was doing, if it was the right stuff, if it was right, And I decided I didn't like who I was, didn't like the person I'd become, didn't like who I was, didn't understand what was happening to me. I didn't understand why I was waking up in the middle of the night, sweating, screaming. Didn't understand any of it. Didn't understand why I was taking panic attacks. Did not understand any of this stuff. To me, I was broken. I just felt broken, and there was no fixing me, no matter what I went to the doctors with, although I wasn't honest at the time. So I walked to the petrol station around the corner, and I tried to set myself on fire. Luckily, somebody pushed me down and told me I didn't want to die, and I'll never forget that guy. And if I ever come across him again, I want to thank him personally.
Yeah.
Because what that led to was me inevitably, for the next 6 years, I knuckled down. I got a courier job, and then my knees gave way, and I had another depression. And then there's some stuff for legal reasons I can't talk about it now, but
yeah,
I will talk
course.
about enough at another show maybe. Some things happened, and I ended up in therapy. and it was the first male therapy session that the NHS had sanctioned in Scotland, I believe. And I went along, and it was a male group therapy session. They says, will you go to this male group therapy session? And I was like, not really into sitting talking about with other guys, you know what I mean? Guys don't do that. Men don't do that. I've not been brought up that way. I've been brought up proper man way, as in, you know, somebody says something bad about you, you hit them. That was the way I was brought up. That's me being honest, brutal honest. And, you know, I could go on about that, but I'm not proud of none of that. I'm not proud of any of that.
Yeah.
So
no, I get it.
The therapist says to me, look, I can't help you unless you go to this group. You'll be waiting 2 years from one-to-one therapy. So I was like, okay, I'll go to the group, I'll go along, and I'll just sit and I'll zip and I'll say nothing. Easy done. I went along, and it was the first time that I got that feeling that I'm not alone. There's other people that have went through stuff in childhood and they're messed up now, but then there's other people who have went through stuff and are doing stuff with their life. And that gave me hope. It gave me hope. And I then finished that and looked for something similar in my community, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing. So I went back to therapy. I was in therapy for 4 years. I went back and I said to my therapist, I was like, there's nothing out there. She says, why don't you start something yourself? I was like, I can't do that. Sure, no. Me? No, I'm a waste of space. This is exactly the words I was using. I'm a waste of space. I can't do that, you know. And she says, no, Jay, you can. So I knuckled down with one of the guys. We came up with Men Matter, and we started having wee groups where guys would come along, and I done a video, and I named it. I didn't want to put my name to it, and for some reason I don't know why, but I thought by making a page called Ace Awareness, I was going to speak out about how adverse childhood experiences affect men, and maybe that's the reason why men in Scotland are not speaking out, because the stigma attached to it. So I opened up the page and I flung a couple of videos out there, and they seem to resonate with a lot of men. I don't know if you're aware, but Scotland's got the capital suicide.
I did look into that, because obviously I live in Scotland now, but I'm not from Scotland, as you can probably tell. But yeah, no, I have looked into it since I've been up here, and it is. Do you know what? It really confused me when I first came here, because like you hear, you know, of Scotland being this capital for suicide and things, but the country's so pretty. Do you know what I mean? When I came up here, I was like, oh my god, this is absolutely stunning. Like, how could anybody really think about it? But I think first things first, obviously, condolences for losing your stepdad, right? Obviously, cancer is a big thing in a lot of people's lives, right? And obviously not talking about childhood experiences because of the extent to what they are. I can completely relate. Like, when I was younger, you know, I went through a time with my mum where we were homeless and we had to stay in a hostel. And, you know, I saw things as well at a young age that probably shouldn't be spoken about on the podcast. So I completely get what you mean by, you know, not triggering people. But as you said, like, childhood experiences really do shape us as we grow up.
To give you a rough idea, I mean, my original father was taken from me at 3-year-old in an accident where he was murdered by another family member, and that was the kind of environment I was brought up around in. So I was left alone and isolated, and I'll say no more on that. My life was horrible. I was at 6 different primary schools, and I just think things would have been different nowadays, which is why I do what I do.
Yeah. But as I say, look, like with what you're doing with, you know, your campaign and stuff, it helps a lot of different people that are obviously going through the same thing. And as I say, being a kid, like, I've moved, I think it's like 13, 14 times since I was young. Do you know what I mean? And as a child, like, moving schools and stuff, it does kind of put a lot of pressure. You know, you make friends, you lose friends, then you move, and then you have to like find yourself again. So yeah, it's really, really hard. But as I say, I think what you're doing with your experiences and, you know, everything like that, I did look into obviously the ACE awareness even before we arranged this, because obviously my friend tagged me in the Facebook post about you obviously being appointed to the National Council, which is amazing. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
But yeah, there's a lot of things, and personally, like I try and get as many, like I only started this 3 weeks ago, but the whole point is for me, it kind of resonates with me, like the whole thing about depression and suicidal attempts and stuff, because I've done many things in my past that, I'm not proud of, as you said, you're not proud of them, but you learn to get on with it and to use it as experience. I've lost friends to suicide, and I think the main thing for me and me having this podcast is to raise awareness in every way that we can. And I really think that even like I spoke to my stepdad actually before I came on with you, and I said, like, because he had to have a cancer test last week, and obviously we were all a bit like, oh no, like what's going to happen? And he's got to like go under on Monday coming to get a biopsy done. And he turned around to my mum and he was like, what happens if I don't wake up? And see, my stepdad, right? He will not speak about anything. And he will not speak about his feelings. He will not speak about his fears. He will not speak about anything. And when he said that, we both just kind of sat there and was like, wow. Do you know what I mean? Because he's never spoken. And I said to him, I was like, how come it takes something this big for you to actually speak about how you're feeling? And he was like, because at our age, we were told that we couldn't express feelings, that we had to be this macho man, and we couldn't show, like, obviously the sensitive side. And I think, reading through your bio before reading about the Men's Matter and things, I think it gives people that safety net that they can speak about what they need to.
Absolutely. And that's what came of the video. I done the video. I've lost two. I'm actually right. I'm going to be honest with you here, right? And I've got a cousin lying in the hospital right now. His two brothers have gone to drugs and suicide, and he took an overdose a few weeks ago, and he's in hospital now. And we're trying to fight to try and get him the right kind of care plan. I've lost another two cousins to drugs and suicide as well. So it really, 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 it really gets to me. It does. So it does. And men, I've lost two friends as well to suicide, and myself, I shouldn't be here. And so I wanted to create that safe space for other men because I knew it helped me. And so we got it backed by the community trust, and then a charity came in and backed it as well, so that they could get access to mental health training and things like that. So it was fantastic, and it gave me a chance to move on to concentrate on ACEs, the root cause, what I see as the problem, the substance abuse problem in Scotland, and the suicide epidemic in Scotland. And I think by treating the root cause, and which is what ACE awareness has kind of always been about, and then Wave 70-30 campaign came along, and it's like they're fighting the exact same fight as I am. And I always believe in this ethos, stronger together. I had an audience. They had the MPs. I think they're backed with nearly 500 MPs. We're backed by nearly 500 MPs in England, and 127 to 129 MSPs in Scotland back the 70-30 campaign, which is for a trauma-informed society. So it's absolutely fantastic what's just come of me speaking out on a video after being in a group therapy session and just trying to create that safety net for men. And now I'm helping Andy's Man Club as well establish up in West Lothian as well, and they open up on Monday as well in West Lothian. So there's a lot. It's the power of talking out. It's the power of speaking, and I say it to everybody. There's this passive-aggressive problem in Scotland where somebody says, I'm feeling depressed, and even your mates will turn around and say, oh, you'll be all right, and they didn't follow up with a phone call. They didn't ask you the next day. You said to me the other day that you weren't feeling too great. How are you today? That doesn't happen in Scotland. It just doesn't happen in Scotland. In England, it seems to be a bit better, and certainly in other parts of the world, it's a hell of a lot better. And so I'm trying to tackle this epidemic, getting men to speak out, because if men don't speak out, then one, they're going to keep on committing suicide, and two, we're never going to know the true extent of the trauma. Because one scary statistic is one of the biggest charities who deal with talking therapists who deal with men, only 13% of their clients are male. That's 1 in 10 nearly. You know what I mean? 1 in 10 men are talking, and that's just the ones that are talking. So We need guys to speak out. We need to create a society where it's safe for men to speak out. And ACE Awareness does that, and the Wave Trust does that as well through the 70/30 campaign, and then leading on to me going into the National Council of Lived Experience.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to influence government into changing policy and taking lived experience into account as well.
Yeah. And I think obviously one of the people watching just put on here, we've got to let men know that it's okay to show their emotions as they are all human as well. I think obviously this is a very kind of, it's to do with generations though, isn't it? Like, I'm not going to lie, I was born in the late 90s, do you know what I mean? And I think, even still, like, my friends that are boys, like, I have Scottish pals that are obviously male, and I remember one night, one of my friends like actually called me up in tears, right? Which obviously takes a lot, as you're saying, for a Scottish boy to, to call someone and be like, "Listen, I am broken."
Absolutely.
And honestly, I was sat there and I was like, I don't know what to say, because I'm never used to a man coming to me. See, if a girl comes to me, like, you give them a cuddle and you tell them it'll be okay, and you just do girl things. But when he told me, I was kind of sat there and I was like, I actually don't know how to help you.
Yeah. No, I totally understand where you're getting, and that was the same for me for a long time as well. It's you just don't know, because it's education, and that's what it is. It comes down to education, and this is where I can be controversial sometimes, and I'll put my hand up here. Right, Scotland introduced the smacking ban 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Am I a bad person and a bad parent because I smacked my child because he nearly burnt himself 10 years ago on the cooker?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It make me a bad person for putting my hand up and saying I smacked my kid. But now I don't smack my kids, because new evidence has came out, new science has came out to say that even smacking your kids now can cause long-term damage. So
yeah,
the law came out, abided by that. And what we need is more people to come out and say, you know what? All right, that was a society then, but this is society now. We need to build society on kindness, empathy, and compassion.
Yeah, and as you say, it is really important. I think, as you say, like, the more men start to speak out, the easier it will become to get those statistics and to see what we need to do to make it better for them. So kind of like just leading on from everything that you were saying, obviously I know I sent you the questions just to have a look over. I think the first one was kind of, what was the reason behind the campaign? Like, I know you said obviously you had personal experiences, but what was kind of the one thing that kind of was like, do you know what, I do need to do this?
My children. Straight away, my children I didn't want my children growing up in the same kind of world that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to try and change things, and I started looking into everything ACE, everything trauma informed, and I've started instilling that into my own children who are still here. I've got the big lad who's moved out with his wife and my grandkids, but I've still got 4 children here who are 12, 11, 10 and 6. So
bless them.
it's and I know that when they grow up, if the oldest laddie was to write about me and they were to write about me, it would be 2 different people, and I know that.
Yeah.
So my children would be the answer to that. What chose me to do it was I wanted to make a difference. I didn't want my children to grow up in a world where they couldn't talk out. Let's say, for example, one of my daughters was, I don't know, maybe sexuality, racism, whatever. I want them to grow up in a world where it's acceptable for to talk about that without being judged, without them having to keep it inside, bottle up, and then be suicidal or self-harm like I have done.
Yeah, of course. And I think obviously I noticed that you were watching my podcast last week when I was speaking to obviously Catherine about racism and stuff. Like, racism, sexuality and stuff, for me, I've always been brought up by my mum that we should love everybody, no matter, their sexuality, where they're from. Everybody's human. Do you know what I mean? So yes, that's a big thing for myself. Like, I obviously know that some people are brought up different. But as you say, like, because there was so much pressure at one point for somebody to express their sexuality or feel comfortable enough in their own race to be around other people, I think, it definitely does put that pressure. And, I've self-harmed in the past. And when I look back at that now, I'm like, why did I do that? Because there's all these other people who go through all these other things every day. Do you know what I mean? So, I think society really needs to make a big change, because we're not still back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. It's now draconian to act in that way, to make people feel isolated, to make people feel judged. It's draconian now. It's newly draconian, but it's draconian now, and it needs to be hammered home that it is draconian, and it's not the way to act.
Of course, yeah. As I said on the last podcast, you know, it was quite a shock for me because obviously moving from England to Scotland, like I can completely understand that some people don't really like English, right? Obviously due to history and all that jazz. But when I first moved up here, the comments that I got was, "Oh, you won't fit in here because you're English." Do you know what I mean? And I think that was like a kind of stepping point for me that I was like, do you know what? There's so many nice people in Scotland. Like I was gonna, you know, it's a bit off topic, but when I first moved here was 2017, and I think Shotts had like the worst snow since 2010. Right?
Sounds great.
Yeah, and I have never driven in snow, right? So I drove down a hill and I thought, the initial thought was, I'm going too fast, put the brakes on. Wasn't a good idea. Put the brakes on, ended up, you know, completely going off the road. I'm sat there shaking because I'm a wreck. And this really nice Scottish guy came up to me and he was like, listen, he was like, you're going to be okay. He was like, I'm going to help you. See, in England, you wouldn't get that. You really wouldn't get that. Like, they would just keep driving past.
That's the thing about Scotland. It's like everybody says that Scotland's such a great place and a nice place, and I'll always be the devil's advocate and say, well, why have we got these statistics that say that we're the worst drug death and worst suicide? There's something missing there. There's something missing, and like you say, you coming up from England, there is people in Scotland who have got that stigma against English people, but they've got that stigma against their fellow Scotsmen as well because of religion, and that's unacceptable as well. Sectarianism, you know, or you're a Protestant or you're a Catholic, or you know, you can't come in. You're a Muslim, you can't. It's rotten. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's absolutely. You're a human being. As a human being, just with a different belief for you. Just like you prefer coffee, they prefer tea. That's it. That's what it is. And if you can get past that barrier, we would break down so many boundaries. It would be unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Obviously, coming back to your therapy session, like obviously you said that it really, really helped. You know, do you feel like you wouldn't be where you are today if you didn't have that session?
4 years worth of therapy I had. 26 weeks was in the group, and I had another 3 years one-on-one therapy. If it was not for that therapy, I wouldn't be here. Simple as that. I would be. I know. I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. I think that's a hard thing to obviously admit as well, to be fair. Do you know what I mean?
And the thing is, I have the perfect plan inside my head. I'm not going to repeat it out here, but I have the perfect plan to end things, so to speak. Suicidal ideation, as they call it. And I've got the perfect plan, but I'm not going to say it because obviously
of course.
But that's how bad it gets, that you know, that you think that far and that deep into how you're going to do it and the way you're going to do it, and for anybody sitting in that position, let alone myself, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself, but for anybody else that's sitting in that position, you know, speak out, man. Speak out. Talk to somebody. Reach out. There are people out there. There are plenty of nice people out there now who will listen to you and help you. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope, you know?
Yeah. It is so important for people to speak out. Because as I say, some people do end up, you know, talking, like, because as I say, my friend that I did lose to suicide, you know, me and a couple of her other friends, you know, messaged her before it happened. And she was telling us that she was fine, that she was, you know, she was doing okay. And then it happened and we were all kind of sat there like, where did that come from? But she'd obviously been thinking about it for weeks and just hadn't told anyone. And I think it is really important that if you do feel like you're on the brink of, you know, doing something like irrational, then you do need to speak out.
Yeah, it's a question that I've always posed to any academic I've come across. Why has there never been a study done on suicide? There is stages to it. I know for speaking to people, I know for myself, you didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to go. And then have a plan in your head and go. There's a gradual, slow process, and for me, it was my trauma to insomnia to my disability in my knees to then getting the heart problem to then other things, depression, anxiety. I got tired of living and tired of being the person I am, and even in that 6 years where before I ended up in therapy, I was driving a courier van. And the thoughts going through my head were, some of them were just, there's a wall, I could just put the foot down right now and that'll be it. And it's a horrible way to live. And the harsh fact is, and the harsh reality is, there are thousands of men out there in Scotland and England, possibly millions, who are feeling that way.
Yeah. I think obviously you have big plans, which you've already mentioned. I think obviously going on to the next question, what is your aim for the future of the ACE awareness campaign?
Well, it's the 70-30 campaign. ACE awareness is just my personal kind of blog thing, which has turned into a campaign in itself. But I've put it under the 70-30 campaign, and I fully back the 70-30 campaign because, like I say, they've got the backing. Almost 500 MPs down in England and 127 or 129 up in Scotland. So they've got the political backing, and that's a real chance for change. A real chance for change when you've got that kind of backing. I don't know if you're aware as well. The Andrea Leadsom report, 1,001 critical days. It's just been new released.
Right. Okay.
I've had a say in that as well, and that's about the first 1,001 critical days in children as well. Sorry, I lose my train of thought. That's part of trauma.
No, you're
as
okay. You're okay.
Association, they call it, and I forget what I was talking about. But
no, you're
sorry.
fine.
What was your question again?
So it was, what is your aim of the future?
Put in a word, is to end child abuse. This is what I call the beginning, the generation that is going to end child abuse. We have set a target of 70% by the year 2030. I think we'll get there before that. It may be 100 years before we see the end of child abuse. It may be 200 years. But what I would say anybody is to get involved with it and to back it, because you will be part of the generation that starts to end it.
Of course.
There's over 200 million children still suffer from maltreatment, and it's not acceptable anymore. And we need to change it. And do you know something scary as well? Is the stats hadn't changed in 50 years.
Wow, that is pretty scary, actually.
Which is why Wave have done this.
It's absolutely heartbreaking, especially, obviously as adults, we can go through abuse, but we somewhat understand it a little bit more. A child doesn't understand that. Well, to be fair, when I was younger, my mum and stepdad went into trying to foster children. To get them obviously out of, the abuse and all that kind of thing. And I went through the training with them, and there was one session that I can remember. Obviously, I won't go into too much detail, but it was, how children had been taken out of abusive households and how they were put into these care homes, and, they were so distant to other kids and they were so quiet, and it was weird because at the time, I'm not proud of it, but I was a selfish child going, I don't know if I like the idea of this because that kid's going to get all the attention. And after that session of hearing what kids can go through, I sat there and thought, do you know what? I've had like 12 years of attention. This kid's had none. Like, what is that? Why am I feeling like that? And, it was a big thing that we did go through as a family, and I still remember that to this day. And obviously with me doing a uni course, my goal is to become a social worker at the end of it, to be able to help kids. Yeah.
It's admirable. It really is.
Yeah, I think, as you say, we need to help more. We need to help more people.
The kids are the future. The kids are our next prime ministers. The kids are our next surgeons. The kids are our next doctors, We've got to protect them. We've got to invest in them. The government's got to invest in them, and we've got to protect them. I mean, you hear some horror stories. I could talk about mine. I could talk about many persons I've heard. Newspapers, some of the stuff you hear is just, and it's no stopping. It doesn't seem to be stopping. There was the NSPCC released a statement the other day. They're saying that it's risen again. They had released a statement a couple of months ago saying it had an 80% increase in calls on child abuse.
Wow.
An increase for 80%. Well, COVID, just under COVID. What
Yeah, I
is
was
going
going
on
to
there in
say.
the world? I done a video saying it's time for the see no evil, hear no evil society to end.
Yeah.
We've got to turn on our backs. We've got to stop turning a blind eye. And we've got to start, if we think a kid's in trouble, we've got to start educating our children on how to spot some signs without traumatizing our children. But we've got to start teaching the children, and we've got to start looking at it as well. And if we think something's wrong, there's this big thing in Scotland. Oh, you're a grass if you pick up the phone. No,
Yeah.
no, right. A grass, by all definitions, is if you're in the crime world and you go and stick somebody else in or whatever. That's what a grass is. You phoning up social services because you think your a child is at risk is no being a grass. You're no less a man or a woman for doing that. In fact, you're a hero for doing it.
Yeah. I think it's I know obviously I put on here that this was to do with obviously men's mental health, but to be fair, I did look into the abuse side of it on your bio as well. So I do want to obviously bring, your knowledge about that. And I think it's quite sad that nowadays we have to educate kids on things like this. Do you know what I mean? Because we're teaching them things that shouldn't be happening. Do you know what I mean? Like sorry, go on.
No, it's because for too many years, it's the way adults can groom children. It's the way adults can groom children and shush and didn't say nothing, and or this will happen to you or that will happen to you. And for kids look up to adults and people who are supposed to look after them, and they do what they're told. They do what they're told. So we've got to start letting children know. Listen, no, anything like this happens, anything like that happens, anything like this. There's only 3 people should see these your parents, your doctor, the hospital. That's it. Anything else, you've got to start talking.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I say, there is so many stories about things like that happening. And it's heartbreaking. I had my friend's got kids and she's like, I had to give my 6-year-old a phone to go out with in case anything happens. And I'm like, I had my first mobile phone at 12 and that was because I was walking to high school on my own. Do you know what I mean?
Same. All my kids have got mobile phones, and you know what? That's probably part of the trauma as well. And this is what's called intergenerational trauma. Is I'm passing some of my trauma down to my children by not giving them probably the independence that they need. I do give them it, but I'm very wary about who they stay over with, who they interact with, and they've all got mobile phones. And for example, my youngest is 6-year-old. He's still not allowed at the street yet. While I see some 6-year-olds who are going to the park and that themselves.
Yeah, but that's protective. In this day and age, there's so many stories of things happening.
Absolutely. But I mean, I hold my hand up and say I could probably give them a wee bit more independence, but because of what happened to me, it's hard to do. It's hard to do.
Yeah. And I think, your missus and your family probably understand that. Do you know what I mean? Like, unfortunately for me, I've had family where the kids are, 6 or 7 and their mums are drug addicts. And rather than them dropping drugs off at other people's houses, they're sending their 7-year-olds to walk to their houses and dropping drugs off. And you know what I mean? And I like my mum is one of those people that, yes, she would let me have the freedom. And one day I got in very big trouble because where I lived in an estate at the time, me and my friends left the estate without telling my mum where we were going. Stupid child at the time. And all we did was go to the park, right? As easy as that was. When we came back, the police cars were everywhere. And, my mum was like, if you're going to go anywhere, you need to tell somebody where you're going. And at the time of being like a 7-year-old kid, you're like, why? Nothing's going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I wasn't, but I see my kids. I see it in my kids that they're carefree. They would just wander off and do what they want. But in a way, that's probably, I can look back at myself and say, well, I've done a good job there then, because my kids, they feel that wee bit of safety to be wild and run about that. Whereas I was, I'm going to put this one out here. As my nickname was Elmer J Chicken, because I was that scared, vulnerable, and thing with it. And what adults didn't realise was they were calling me that as a joke. But to me, it was, man, you're humiliating me. You're humiliating me even more. This my family, my friends. It's like, no, but at the time, as a kid, you just don't speak out. You just don't speak out. You don't speak out. So we've got to build a society where it's safe for kids to speak out.
Yeah, of course, and I completely agree. I think obviously next question was like, obviously, as you say, you had all this therapy and you had all this stuff happen. What would you kind of say, or how do you find the stigma behind men's mental health?
It is still terrible. It is still terrible. There is a lot of work being done behind the stigma. There is great places out there like Andy's Man Club and Men Matter Now and Ace Awareness and Wave, who are all doing stuff. Trauma Informed Society addresses that as well. Where Trauma Informed Society, drug deaths would reduce and so would suicide reduce as well. But as far as sorry, repeat the question. I've done
It's
it again.
okay. How do you find the stigma behind men's mental health?
In a nutshell, it's ridiculous in Scotland. It's actually and I want to put a message out there. There's this image of what a real man is. If you want to know what a real man is, go and pick up a book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, and that's where you'll find out what a real man is, if there is a definition of a real man. However, what I would say is there is no definition of a real man. There is just a man. And there is a man who is willing to open up and talk about his emotions. And to me, that is a strength.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that. Because, sometimes, like, I've had obviously friends, partners, etc., that, if I've been in a really bad depressive way, like, I'm quite open about it with obviously friends and partners and things. But see, if a man's feeling it, sometimes you can't even tell. Like, sometimes you can pick up on rough, small things.
I wore a mask for so long that I ended up painting the mask on my hand. And that's what that signifies. That's the Joker. It's my nickname. It was what my nickname was. And I literally, when I took the mask off and changed my life, I wanted a symbol.
To represent it.
To say that that's my mask. I didn't need to wear my mask, so I painted my mask onto my hand. And didn't get me wrong, I still sometimes need to put that mask on for like the night for the interview. I'm wearing a bit of the mask because I didn't want to get too emotional.
But I think
the National Council, that I put the mask on. So
you've just got to be tactical. Yeah, you've got to be tactical. Like, as I said on my last podcast, I have a tattoo on my thigh of a girl with a mask on. Because, even as you say, when you grow up, like you learn not to really give a crap anymore what people say. But as you say, you have to be tactical in some situations and you have to somewhat cover your mouth and bite your tongue sometimes. I think for me, like, I got bullied quite a lot in school for the way that I looked, like my weight. I didn't wear lots of makeup when I was in school. It's a bit of a nerd. So,
I got bullied. I got bullied as well before I realised that I couldn't break. So I totally empathise with that. I really do. I got bullied all the way through my primary school years, and then when we moved through here to West Lothian when I was 12, I was the new kid at the school through here. I was an Edinburgh kid coming to West Lothian. I got bullied until I was right up into third year, until I got a hell of a kicking off of about 13, 14 guys through the village because I was an outsider. And I ended up in hospital. They kicked my temple bone in. If I'd went in another millimetre, it would have snapped and I would have died. But that was when I realised that I didn't break here. And I ended up turning into a bully. I turned into a bully after that. And I'm not proud of that either. So I actually understand why bullies bully people as well, if that makes sense. And it all comes to, if somebody's out there bullying, then something's not right at him.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, when, as you say, bullies, like, if you actually speak to a bully, which I think, I'm not very proud of this, but at high school at one point, someone was really picking on me, right? And I just completely lost it, right? Completely lost it and ended up, getting into a bit of a fight. And when it finished, I said to them, I was like, why do you do this? And they said, because I see the strength in you that I don't have. So I want you to feel how I feel.
Powerless.
Yeah. And it really kind of woke me up at that point. And I was like, do you know what? These bullies aren't people that want to make people feel crappy. They want people to feel how they feel.
Yeah,
and we just don't understand it.
Exactly, and I've come in for a bit of criticism for the way that I stick up for bullies, because there's a whole Be a Star campaign, these kind of things, and it's all stand up to bullies, whereas don't stand up to the bully. Let's get the bully aside and ask, what happened to you?
Yeah,
Why are you
exactly.
acting this way? Why are you acting this way? You know, and that's what I'm hoping to achieve as well, is addressing that. And again, that falls under a trauma-informed society as well. So it all ties in.
No, 100%. And do you know what? I hope, obviously, we get to a point where we do sit people down who bully other people and ask them what's happened to them to make them be like that. Because I think that would obviously help understand things and probably end bullying, to be fair, or at least minimize it.
You would tend to find that that they would come from some form of background that was dysfunctional. You know, if somebody's brought up and all they're seeing is violence, and all they see is their mum and dad fighting and hitting each other and getting drunk and violence and drugs and violence and drugs, and that is all they see, then they got to grow up and that's all they're going to see. And this is another gripe I've got with the justice system, is if a 12 to 18-year-old ends up in front of a judge and ends up in juvenile or in jail, it's like, why not ask them what happened to them, what's going on at home, why are you acting this way first? Because I'm sure, I tweeted it out there, I'm sure that 12 weeks worth of therapy would be cheaper than 3 months in jail and could create better, more responsible adults. So we need to start looking at it for upside down and inside out, and start asking the questions. And I'll hammer these. I'll keep saying this. It's my soundbite, so to speak. What happened to you? Why are you acting this way?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think a big one is, what advice would you give to men who are struggling with mental health?
Speak out, man. Look for a local men's club. Look for a local trauma-informed group. Look for a charity. Speak to your doctor, a trusted friend, a family member. But above all, speak to somebody. And for the, I'll say this to everybody as well, for the case of stats, and so that we can know the true extent of the damage. Even if you just phone your doctor and just say to your doctor, look, I'm feeling this way, depressed or suicidal, so that when we do the stats, we can actually finally get a proper
Have a
demographic.
true representation. Yeah.
You don't need to phone the doctor and say, if you're not comfy, if you're a guy out there and you're struggling and you're not comfortable talking to your doctor, talk to a trusted friend or a charity or a therapist, but at least tell your doctor, at least put it on record that you feel that way. It's confidential. Yeah. It's not going to go back to your work. Your work's not going to stigma. In the day, workplaces do stigmatise people for mental health. I've seen it across it with the men's groups and stuff like that. So I understand why men don't want to speak out. A man speaks out and says that he's had a mental breakdown. Like, I've had mental breakdowns. I would probably be silly to probably sit here and forecast the rest of my life I'll never have a mental breakdown. I've got a diagnosis of chronic and complex post-traumatic stress disorder due to the 80s. My lifespan's already been cut 20 years. I've got a heart problem. I've been dead 3 times already. They had to defib me back. I don't think I'll be here for a long time. I'm a walking case study. I'm a walking guinea pig, and that's why I put myself out there, is for people to learn from me. And guys, just speak out, man. You didn't need to speak out like I do. Speak to your pals, speak to your family members, speak to the one person you trust, because even getting it off your shoulders will make a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, obviously, just kind of going on to the next couple of questions, I put, how would you say the campaign that you've made relates to your personal life? Not to pry too much.
Because I'm doing it for my children. One of the things that really irks me about my dad, my real dad, and what happened to him was, it's like he's been forgotten about. It's like it's only us that remember him, or me even, and my wife. And I didn't want to die nameless. I didn't want to die without contributing something towards society and making life better for my children. So it all fits in with the same thing, my children again, and wanting to do something for humanity. I see myself as a human. I am a Christian. I consider myself a Christian Stoic, but above all else, I'm a human, and I want to do something for humanity. I want my children to grow up in a better place. So again, that all ties back into the same thing, Megan.
I think that's a very good answer.
I'm
So
learning, I'm
obviously,
getting diplomatic.
so obviously, as I said at the beginning, you've been appointed to the National Council of Lived Experiences Heart of ACE. How has it been for you since Hearts of ACE even? How has it been since you started that?
The fact that I am the only Scottish member and founding member, and one of the founding members, is absolutely mind-blowing for me. It is beyond my wildest dreams. When I first done a couple of videos saying I wanted to change the world, to now know that I'm in a position where some very, very influential and clever people round about me in that council, that we can actually make the changes. It's not sunk in yet, to be fair. I'm just off a meeting with them before I come and done this with you, and it's surreal. It's absolutely surreal. It's already taken off big time in Scotland. There's big interest for it in Scotland. You know, people want the voice of lived experience, and that's what the council aims to deliver, is to get the voice of lived experience into these policy changes, into schools, into businesses, so that people can understand what trauma is, understand your clients, understand the people who you're making decisions for. You know, the powers that be. And listen, I've got nothing but good things to say about any of the politicians that I've spoke to, because they've all backed me. So, you know, they do a great job. They do what they can. A lot of people give them a hard time. I know it's election day, but they do what they can. Their hands are tied with a lot of stuff as well. You know, especially the ones I've worked with in West Lothian, and the councillors, they've been fantastic. They want to see the change. They understand where we're coming from. And that's just fantastic. And we need more councils and boroughs, and we need the nation basically to want to become trauma informed.
Yeah. I think what's kind of good about it though as well is, you know, yes, the politicians get a lot of stick from a lot of people, right? But as I've explained on a couple of my podcasts now, it's really hard for somebody to make changes when they don't understand what it's like themselves.
Of course. How can the education minister, for example, make policy changes to education when they're not taking into account the lived experience for adults who are now talking about the effects? That's massive. And especially, I really want to concentrate on this, because they've ring-fenced, I think it was £275 million for mental well-being for 0 to 18-year-olds. But the worrying thing is, none of that was ring-fenced for 0 to 3-year-olds.
Right, okay.
Which is 1001 critical days, you know?
Yep.
And to give you a quick summary on why that's important is, if you do a wee bit of research, John Bowlby, Suzanne Zedyke, Mary Ainsworth, Harry Harlow, they've all contributed to this, and it's attachment theory. And it's if we can build resilience into 0 to 2-year-olds and 0 to 3-year-olds, then even if they go through some of the horrible stuff that I did, then they're less likely to make the same mistakes as I have. They're more likely to be resilient and get over it. They'll not get over it, but cope with it better, and go on to live a better, responsible life, which in turn will create a society of responsible adults who, therefore, the kickback is they'll be responsible when it comes to racism. They'll be responsible when it comes to LGBTQ+. They'll be responsible when it comes to voting. They'll be responsible when it comes to sectarianism, to the English stigma, and especially, above all, to men speaking out.
Yeah, of course. And as I say, with the last question, it's quite a big one, right? So obviously, with all of the life experiences that you've had, what would you say is the one that has shaped you the most?
It was sitting in the hospital room with, I need to get this right because I need to give them the proper credit, Dr. Catherine Watt and Dr. Gaynor Moffat. It was my referral for psychology, to see if they would take me for psychology. And I just blurted out my life story. I just blurted out everything, all the humiliating bits. I thought, in for a penny and for a pound. And I just, you know, I let it out. And there's some embarrassing stuff in there, which I'm happy to talk about later on, you know, because a lot of the things guys didn't like talking about is the masculinity side and the sexual side. I let it all out in there. I let it all out, all the problems, all the issues, all the things. And the look that I expected to look at, well, look, you're a weirdo. You're messed up. You're thinking. The two of them looked at me with the exact same expression, and it's an expression that I hadn't seen it before, and it was empathy.
Yeah.
And they told me that nothing that I'd done or anything that I'd been through was my fault, and that moment there was a moment that, you know, I think for some reason I can't cry when I'm upset or whatever. It takes up. It's very rarely I cry. I think I've cried once in the last year.
Yeah.
Once in the last 3 years, twice in the last 10 years.
Wow.
And I went home and cried that night because for the first time in my life, I felt accepted. And that was my turning point. That was, I felt I owed it to them to turn my life around. I owed it to them to put the work in therapy and continue to do so. I owed it to them for everything else that I went on to do and achieve. And they saved my life.
Yeah, of
My wife,
course. No, that's
my wife and my kids as well. I didn't
yeah.
know it. And also George Hoskin, OBE, has had a big part to play in my life as well by backing me as much as it has with the Wave Trust and the 70/30 campaign and showing me the faith with the National Council.
Yeah, well, I think obviously, as I've said before, like everything, you know, that I've had a look at that you've done is absolutely incredible. And I think the whole accepting thing, you know, for even me, like I've had counseling before, I've had cognitive behavioral therapy before, and you know, you are so much in your own head. You think, oh my God, like I'm not normal, or I'm like this, or I'm like that. And when you have somebody else sit back and listen to everything that you've got to say and then go, wow, you really have been through a lot. Do you know what I mean? It kind of then you sit back and you go, do you know what? Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe I am. Maybe I am not as normal as we can be. But I think, you know, with what you're doing is amazing for so many different reasons. You know, whether it be obviously the child abuse aspect, which I'm not gonna lie, I don't have kids yet. I've not gone through it, but I know it is such a big thing that's still very big now. I think, yeah, just with everything that I saw, to, you know, my friend obviously tagged me in the post, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Let's get him on. Let's get him chatting.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just starting to realise now that ACE Awareness is actually Jay Haston, and you know, I'm not an egomaniac. I never done this to get my name out there. I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to end up on a national council. I lived experience, although I am honoured and privileged to be on it. It was never my aim. My aim was just to throw videos out there and hope that men would listen to them and stop taking their own lives and start treating their children a bit better and educating their children. And for there, it's just grew to what you've seen it grow into.
Yeah. And I think that's the nice thing about it, right? Is you went into this not wanting anything out of it except from raising awareness. And that's such a big thing, because a lot of people. Yeah, sorry, go on.
So, I'll be honest as well. For a while it was a path of redemption as well.
Yeah.
For the bad things that I'd done, and for you know, the whole thing with my dad. I've had this question should I avenge thy father or should I turn the other cheek? And it's an argument I've had with I used to have with God daily and still do sometimes, you know. And it's these things that really all add in and pile into your head and on top of everything else, and no feeling worthy and when people attack you and criticize you for speaking out as well, and still to keep going and you know, I've nothing to lose anymore. You know, I'm an open book now, and it's as simple as that. And if it's going to help people, then so be it. And it's turning out as helping people.
You know, as I say, it is amazing. I think another thing that I would kind of ask, obviously, not to kind of go into too much detail, it's fine, but how would you feel your family have kind of dealt with everything that you've gone through? Do you know what I mean? Obviously, for me, who you know has had past partners that don't speak about stuff, to, you know, your missus now seeing you finally, you know, opening up and helping other people, like how have your family like taken it as such?
My family was fractured and destroyed when I was 3, when that happened. in my eyes anyway, it was destroyed. Like I say, I've lost 2 cousins to suicide and 2 to drugs.
Yeah.
The impact it just that one night. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
No, it's
The
okay.
impact that one night and what that was a catalyst for was,
Mhm.
you know,
You
I
can
don't
take
think
your time. You're
I don't
human.
think people, yeah, I don't think people realise. Sometimes people didn't realise when they make a choice just who it's going to impact and how long it's going to impact them for.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
this has impacted me my whole life, and it will impact me my whole life.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. You know,
So to answer
losing.
the question,
Hmm.
I'll be brutally honest. I've got
Yeah.
2 brothers. Well, I've actually got about 13 brothers, but a lot of them live in London. I've got 2 brothers to my mum, and I'm civil with one, and the other one doesn't talk to me. And I'm the biggest one, I'm the oldest one, so I take responsibility for that. And it's because, and I'm blessed to have the wife that I've got. She stood by me for 25 years married.
Yeah.
I put my hand up. I am not the best at relationships. I don't know how to do it.
Mhm.
I was never shown. I never had a dad. I never had but I'm learning now. I'm slowly learning. I'm learning who to trust. I'm learning who to have faith in, or who's got faith in me and who trusts me. And I'm still learning every day, Megan. I'm still learning every day, as well as putting these messages out.
Yeah, of course. No, I think, all of this is a learning curve. As I say, the whole point of me doing these podcasts, was kind of a big thing for me, because I was actually a guest on one, and I was speaking to somebody about it. And, as I say, I've gone through a lot of mental health issues in my past. And, dad left when I was 3, had so, like, my mum got bullied out of our house. We were police escorted out the house. And, there's a lot of things. And I think when I did read, your bio, like, because obviously I looked at the page before you even sent me over all the information, and it was kind of like, as I say, you have taken everything in your life, even though it is emotional and it'll hurt every time that you have to think about it. But it's like you put it to the side to help other people. And I think that's such a big thing. Not enough people do it.
The truth is, it's my therapy. It's my
Yeah.
OCD. I would love to say, and I say this all the time, I would love to take credit and say, do you know what? I sat down with a 5-year plan, and I planned this, and this. I
Yeah.
never. And I'll be honest about it. It was my OCD. I've got OCD, and my OCD will just not let me stop. If I didn't keep helping people, sorry, you've got an English audience. If I don't keep helping people,
No, it's
I have
fine. I think everybody's good. I think we can all understand you. I've not had any. Can we translate this, please?
I still get bad days where either my heart's taking palpitations, or my knees will just not let me move, or my head takes me back to the dark places, and I've got to do a lot of work on myself to try and bring myself back out. And even on the opposite end, sometimes when I've got to talk, I need to actually dig into the darkness to be able to give because I think the big thing that comes out across me, and a lot of folk have said, that is my passion. And that passion comes from digging back into that darkness before I come on and do these kind of things, so that I can get to you real and honest, and because I truly believe that only by honesty, by putting your hands up to your mistakes, by speaking out, can you encourage other men that's all right to do the same.
Yeah. I think, as I say, the main thing that, was the reason behind us chatting was to raise awareness about men's mental health, and, how important it is for them to speak out. I can't thank you enough for obviously coming on and chatting to me, about obviously everything. I just think, everything that's kind of been said, obviously it gets saved on the page, it gets put on the YouTube channel for...
Oh, you froze again. Can anybody else hear or see Megan? Is it me? Oh. I lost you for a second there. Are you there?
Yeah, I swear I'm going to end up launching this laptop out the window. So what I was saying is, even if it's like a couple weeks or, you know, a couple months, you know, get you back on, have a chat about the new stuff that you've been getting up to would be really, really good.
Keep an eye on the Sun newspaper in the next few days.
Right, cool. I've made a note of everything that you've been like saying. So I'm like, Sun's new newspaper, read this book, Harry Harlow, and just like little notes all the way through.
Probably with the secure attachment stuff, John Bowlby came out with secure attachment, and Suzanne Zedike has done a hell of a lot of work with that currently today.
Mhm.
But Mary Ainsworth, Harry Harlow were like in between them, and
Yeah.
and so we've known the solution to creating resilience in children since 1950 odd, since John Bowlby came out with attachment theory. Suzanne Zedike is the one who's probably done the most work on that in Scotland. Nadine Burke-Harris, Vince Felice, George Hoskin. There's also please don't let me forget, Andrea Leadsom report now. The Andrea Leadsom report as well now. So there's a lot of people who are active now and doing a lot of stuff. You know, Ian Duncan Smith does a lot of trauma-informed stuff with the justice system. And he asks these questions to the judges, you know, ask them why, ask them what happened to them. You know, there's a lot of good people out there doing a lot of good work. And my biggest message out of this would be, let's all come together. Let's have a national conversation about this. Let's all talk about it and let's see what we can do.
Of course. And I think obviously education is a big thing as well. But yeah, I think obviously I've wrote down, I'll keep an eye on the Sun newspaper over the next couple of days. As I say, I would love to get you back on later on, you know, after you've done some other stuff. But I really do appreciate obviously you coming on between everything else that you're doing. And actually having a chat, but we'll have a chat after this and then we'll see about getting you back on in a couple of months.
Most definitely, Megan. It's been a pleasure to come on and try and get my word out there a bit more and you provide that platform. So thank you for that.
Oh, no worries. As I say, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the blog, keeping an eye on the journey that you're taking. And yeah, I think, you know, as much as we can, we need to give voice back to men and to children again. So, and I think you're the way forward for that. So,
well, no pressure, Jay.
No pressure. No, there's no pressure to meaning, but you know, you're already helping so many people.
I live by an ethos, and that is I do what I can, when I can, while I can.
Yeah. It's a good ethos to have. I go overboard. I'm like, I need to do this, and this. But no, I shall let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. I shall speak to you soon, and thank you again for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye, Jay.
Pleasure speaking to you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you. Bye.
Bye.